And
hey guys,
action.
Morning. Hey,
Effing
Welcome to Talk.
it's happening,
What's up,
boys.
guys? Oh, there we go. All I have is water.
Oh,
good to
Wow.
see you all.
You too. You too. We haven't had Shane Gallus in a minute, so it's good to have you here, sir.
where have you been, mister?
I think I missed one or possibly two, but I have
Yeah,
missed you guys as well.
Couple, yeah, you too. Shane's been in Oahu. He's been living the dream,
Yep.
getting away from the
I did
cold.
get tested. I got tested a couple days ago. Everything's cool.
I got vaccinated
before you went, and when you
Did
came
you?
back,
Yeah, I got
you got-
vaccinated. Yeah, I got
is it the single shot or the two-part shot?
It was the single shot, the Johnson & Johnson.
The Johnson and Johnson.
I can
So-
I can do
Or your
like-
Johnson.
Yeah. It was in my Johnson. Ow. Yeah, it's just it's getting more and more common. It seems to be like everybody's sort of starting to get it. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm ready to kind of like do whatever it takes to get this thing back in order. We got Toque dates we'd like to be playing and whatnot in the summertime. So
Yeah, especially as everything kind of starts to get into the spring frenzy. You know, it's just the gates are going to come wide open for sure. So
I think it's going to be nuts when it finally does blow open. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I mean, we got a border to cross, which is a whole other subject in Canada. That's still pretty locked down. Which, you know, if there's anything we know about Canada, is it's, you know, the rules, baby.
Lockdown.
Follow the rules.
could be a thing on your phone though. Eventually, hey, I have the app that says I got the vaccine, and maybe you
Or
cross
you
the
walk
border
around
and
like just like a back pass,
Or
like a
the
back
chip.
pass on Wayne's World, like
Chip.
just gonna walk around. A chip, yeah,
You just
exactly.
go by the scanner. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're good.
It looked like they were tearing it up in Florida, though. Spring breakers,
Of course they
like
are. Yeah.
Always.
following any social distancing measures.
well,
No,
sometimes spring breakers, the COVID is the least of their worries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'll take COVID over any of these other diseases.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of those you can just get a shot for, I suppose. I don't know how that works. But
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. Anybody catch
And
any of the
it's-
Grammys? I know we have some folks here that were,
Corey
probably-
watched the Grammys. I never
Tell
watched
us
the
about it.
Grammys.
You got
We didn't
edged out
win.
you got edged out by that Rabbit movie or something, right?
Yeah, which I can't believe because Jojo Rabbit, I feel like I've seen it 10 years ago. How is
It
it?
does seem like a long time ago. It's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
It was weird. Like I watched the trailer. Sorry, to cut you off, but the trailer was like, "We're the monkeys." Was it?
Hmm?
Or no, I'm a believer. Pardon me. It was "I'm a Believer" by the Monkeys.
Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
that like an old song?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
2020. It's a 2020 remix.
There you go.
Master.
Yeah. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great soundtrack, but doing an original soundtrack for something like Bill and Ted's 3, you think that would sort of put you in a bit of a thing. But
Hey, you
yeah,
got nominated.
Got nominated.
that's the
huge.
important thing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Did they
I've
send
never
you,
been
like, some
nominated
sort
for a
of
Grammy.
participation ribbon or anything like that?
Participation pin?
Participation pin.
Remember the
Dude, I
participation
had
pins?
one of those recently when I was
Yeah,
at home
yeah.
in Canada.
That's amazing.
I
Award
once
of excellence.
I once won a Gammy when my grandmother gave me a blue ribbon.
Classic.
Hey, and don't forget, guys, we now are on audio podcasts.
That's right.
Your favorite ones, Spotify, Google, Apple, Pandora, anywhere that you can get a podcast. Toque is available, all episodes.
And where do
So-
they find that, Corey?
Oh,
just
they can
said-
go to, they can do what I said, or they can go to toquetalk.com
That's right.
Yeah.
and you can
go.
find every episode in an audio format so you can listen while you're driving or cleaning toilets or falling asleep at night.
What you are currently listening to will eventually be on toque.com audio.
That's right.
It's
And,
sort of so meta when you start saying it like that, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we should, we have done this in the past, but we should mention that this is pre-recorded, going to be airing 24 hours from now, I imagine, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so we'll, so we're going
Yeah.
to
So
forward a day.
if anything catastrophic happens between now and then, we're not talking about it because we didn't know about it. So there you
That's
go.
right. Exactly.
Because it didn't happen.
It didn't happen yet.
And we were talking a little bit before we went on. We're coming up on a year of doing this. Who would have thought, right? I mean,
No,
you know,
actually, the 14th, the 9th, I think we came home from Regina. We had played Telemiracle. Toque did.
Right.
We all came home, and I think around the 14th, 15th was the day I finally relented and said, "Okay, I'm going home."
Yeah.
And stayed home. Yeah.
So it's been almost a
year
full
today.
year of doing this every week, with the exception of maybe one or two. But
And we
it's
started
been
on
great.
April 17th. Did you say, Corey?
We did. Yeah. And this
April
this
17th.
episode now is 47.
Wow.
Well, and
that's a lot.
remember when we started, we thought this, hey, you know, it's going to last maybe a
2
couple
weeks.
weeks. Let's cram as many guests into one episode
That's
as we
right.
can. You know, so you know,
Right.
you
So
know,
we even though this is episode 47, it's actually 53 guests.
Holy cow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
yeah, that's
Wow.
crazy.
Awesome.
Speaking of guests,
Speaking of
segue,
guests,
Yeah,
segue.
exactly. There's a good segue. Yeah. Speaking of guests,
Let's do this.
Brent,
You wanna introduce Brent?
We nominated you to do the induction.
Actually, Corey, why don't you read off some of the credits? You were just telling me
All right.
about some of his credits. I'd love to hear
All right.
Mark's credits.
Well, you may
mean,
or may not have heard of him as our guest today, but you've definitely heard him
That's
because he's been on like everything as a background vocalist, in particular drummer as well, but mostly background vocals. Motley Crue,
That's right.
he's the one you're being Dr. Feel Good.
That's him.
That's
That's
him.
Mark. Yeah.
In the background, he did Annihilator. He did Randy Bachman. He actually plays drums with Randy Bachman
And-
currently.
And
He's-
Bachman
Bachman
Turner.
Turner.
And Bachman Turner and Loverboy. He sang on Loverboy. He sang on Cher and a Cher song or
Yeah.
album.
Wow.
Scorpions, David Lee Roth,
Wow.
like some really big hitters. Carly Simon, Glass
Wow.
Tiger, and our favorite Chilliwack, right? Because
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
Bill
wow.
Henderson was on last week.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We got to find out what song that was because that's pretty cool credit. Not that
very
the others aren't.
No, I know. But most importantly, he is a Winnipegger, which I think is he's prairie folk. I think that's really
Yeah.
important.
All
So
comes back to Winnipeg.
it all
There
seems-
should be another stat when we talked about all those guests. How many of them actually have that 7 degrees of Winnipeg?
well, everybody's 1 degree of Winnipeg, really.
Exactly.
And
I
and
can't comment.
his band in the 80s, we traveled in the same circuits with my band, and his band was always the bar. Like they set the bar for everybody in that band had awesome vocals. So they were like, if you want good background vocals, go listen to Cease and Desist because that and the band still is going now.
Yeah, Cease and Desist is still going strong.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Brent. I know I've got it.
Well, and speaking of
Say his name
Winnipeg,
now.
the
Yeah, exactly.
the root of Winnipeg as far as music was another great band, but was based in Winnipeg, Crocus. And
That's right.
I believe we can ask Mark all about it, but a lot of great era in the time of Neil Young and the Guess Who and all the bands that were from Winnipeg. And Mark was part of all those great bands in that circuit too. And a lot of those people have migrated to other cities. So Mark is now in Vancouver, but so let's ask him a million questions.
Crocus with a K though, right?
It's
No,
no,
it's
it's
not- it's not-
CROW.
Not the Swiss crocus. This is crocus.
No.
The
This is-
isn't the crocus the like flower of Manitoba or something like that? Isn't
It
there-
is. It
There
is.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that was well before the Swiss band, the Crocus
Yes.
from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, Mr. Marc LaFrance.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, Mark,
Great.
welcome.
Hey, Mark.
Wow.
You must
Hey.
you must have got so many chicks just by saying your name, Marc LaFrance. Like right away, it's like
Well, you know what? The funny thing is my real name. I mean, it's Marc LaFrance is short for Marcelin Jean-Joseph LaFrance. So there you go.
whoa.
That sounds better when you say it.
When I said Marcelin Jean-Joseph LaFrance, I was in right away.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That
we
is
better
amazing.
get this episode on right away before they cancel it like they did with Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah. no kidding. Hey, I started playing music many years ago, so a lot of the stuff we can't even go. I mean, sure, with you guys as well, you can't even go into anymore.
We'll be canceled. We'll be canceled. We can't
Absolutely.
talk-
You can, God forbid. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, man. Phew. It's amazing that Motley got away with the dirt when you think about it. I thought,
Well,
man.
so far they've
Yeah,
gotten
that's
away
true.
with it. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. The clock is
telling you.
always ticking, it seems like. Yeah.
I still have
speaking-
faith in the kids. Still have faith in the kids when last year's song of the year was Wet Ass Pussy. So, I mean,
Hey,
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to believe anybody's offended by anything, really, when that's
I know. It's just
they're playing Call of Duty and lighting hookers on fire in Grand Theft Auto. Listening to Wet Ass Pussy, canceling Pepe Le Pew. Yeah.
8-year-olds singing at the word.
I know, it's so fascinating.
Sorry to cut you off there, Todd, but yeah, that was we had to bring that up.
No, so speaking of, I don't mean to jump right ahead, but what I've always been curious about is clearly you have a connection. Is your connection with Bob Rock also a Winnipeg guy? Bob Rock produced, for those that don't know, Metallica, Motley Crue, a bunch of gigantic records. Was in the Cult, was in a group called the Payolas, and then Rock and Hide, and a really great songwriter and guitar player himself. But was your connection as a vocalist? Did Bob say, get Mark in to sing all this? Because for those that don't know, if you're watching Motley Crue, in modern day standards, I don't think it's a big secret that they have recorded vocals, but 100% you are playing with Motley Crue every night, because I can hear Mark's voice going, he's the one that called it the Feel Good.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I went to see them when that first the Dr. Feelgood tour came out. And I went backstage, and first thing Tommy Lee said to me, man, Mark, man, you're singing great, dude. Man, you sing great every night. And he promised me a nice Motley Crue leather jacket, but I never received it. I don't know.
Really?
We're putting that out there right now. Where's Mark's jacket, Tommy?
Yeah, come on, Tommy. What happened there? It's only I don't know, man. It's quite a few years ago now, isn't it?
Take it to social media. Hashtag give Mark his jacket.
We'll start a huge campaign.
Or a check.
But is that a Bob Rock connection for you that these things come up? Or
actually, what happened? The strange thing is when I moved to Vancouver in 1980, it's amazing. I'd done a lot of studio work back to Winnipeg at Century 21, and Road Studios was kind of the studios that I started out. Back in those days in Winnipeg, you'd go in. I was doing a lot of jingles, so you go in and you do like 5 jingles, and doing drums, and then singing background vocals, and you make like $50. And I figured
nothing wrong with that.
Back then, I was going, "Wow, I made $300."
That was a lot of money in those days.
Back then, it was, because I am an ancient, so that was.
Hey, I'll take $300 right now.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I ended up moving to Vancouver in 1980. And I started doing jingles almost immediately. I was singing in the studio, singing commercials. Like I did probably thousands of those before I, and I'd be singing with this little guy called Brian Adams. And we were singing like Chevy ads and Coca-Cola and all kinds of stuff.
Anything off the top of your head that you think anybody would remember?
Yeah. Let me think. The champagne of ginger ale, Canada Dry.
Amazing.
I sang that with Bill Henderson. He did he joined me on the falsetto endings and that. So.
Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I got tapes of that stuff. I got to like transfer it over one day.
You must.
Be a laugh to get it out. But
so
anyway,
whatever happened to that Brian Adams guy?
I don't know what happened to him. But anyway, so here I am in Vancouver, and Bob was him and like Mike Fraser was like was like a tape op back then, and
sure.
And Bob was around, but I met Bob actually. I was at the Cave because I knew the Loverboy guys at the time, and they had just put this new band together, and it was just happening. And Adams, there was a showcase at the Cave with Brian Adams and Loverboy. And I'm standing around waiting, and I'd been in Crocus, and we're kind of broken up at that time. But this guy comes up to me and he starts talking to me. Hey man, I saw you playing at the Commodore, singing with Warming Up God, man, love your drumming, love your singing. And I was really nice to him, and I think might have even bought him a drink or whatever. And it was Bob Rock. He came up and introduced me. And, I was apparently. Because he was just starting to happen, of course. Little did I know, and I use that as an example a lot of times with young musicians. I say, "Man, be nice to people,
100%,
because you just never ever know that person comes up." I'd seen guys do it a million times. You get a little bit of success. You're on the road. You're playing concerts. You get your first album out, and then you think you're you're on top of the world, but you got to be so careful, because if your ego gets too big and you piss off the wrong guy, man, it'll affect your future. And that, to me, that was a perfect example. So that's actually how and then I started seeing him around Little Mountain, and he was doing jingles as well, because that's where everybody cut their teeth. That's how these guys got good, like Mike Fraser and Rock and all these guys got their chops up by singing on like producing commercials. You understand, back in those days with GGRP was the big, huge firm. So they were doing huge productions with full orchestras and stuff. So these guys learned how to record orchestras and really cut their teeth and knew what they were doing. So anyway, that's how my connection came about with Bob. And it was Did you ever
have the Winnipeg conversation? Because I was learning more recently, and like I didn't know Bob was actually from Winnipeg.
I didn't either, but we did eventually, because I think he was like, he might have been around from Flin Flon or something like that, because he's got a bit of that, you remember that there was that big festival just outside of Winnipeg, Fenikalukalaka. I don't know, I can't remember. It was some Swedish thing, it was a big festival every year.
But I mean, I was going to say, clearly, because you guys were from there originally, but Vancouver had very important future importance to your careers, right? I mean, not being in Winnipeg and Vancouver sort of like opened up a lot of opportunity, clearly, right?
Absolutely. Like, Vancouver opened up huge doors for me. But I mean, before coming to Winnipeg, for me, I guess the big opening door was actually playing with Guess Who guys. I was a young kid in Winnipeg, and I was, playing in a band called Musical Odyssey, which was a great cover band at the time in Winnipeg. And then these, Burton Cummings and Kurt Winter and Bill Wallace, all these guys from the Guess Who would come, and, so I had the first rock stars I met were guys from the Guess Who, because they come out to the Saint Vital Hotel or wherever I was playing and go, "Hey kid, you sing pretty good. You play good drums, keep doing it." And, Kurt Winter lighting up cigars with $100 bills. It was like it really
$100 Canadian.
Yeah, it was Canadian.
It was a Canadian tire dollars.
Only 75 cents. But that was my early exposure. So then being actually playing with Greg Lescue and Bill Wallace from the Guess Who, that was a pretty major step for me. That was my first real original band. So
that's great.
And having that and all the jingles that I'd done in Winnipeg and the Crocus albums, I was able to march into GGRP, which was Little Mountain Sound at the time. And no kidding, I was like, it was one of those magical moments. I'm sitting in the office with Brian Griffith, who was one of the principals with GGRP, which was a big production company for jingles. And I played in the Crocus stuff, and he actually listened to it, which was amazing. And he said, he phoned, I remember I was sitting there. He said, "Okay, this is great." He phoned ACTRA. Like back in those days, to sing on commercials, you had to have 8 ACTRA sessions under your belt. And ACTRA is a union for singers for an actor.
Right. Yeah.
And he phoned up ACTRA and he said, "Look, I got Marc LaFrance in my office here, and we're going to be using them for way more than 8. We want to sign them up right now." So he got me an ACTRA right away, and then boom, I was doing all these. Where I used to make $50, all of a sudden it was like you do a national Toyota ad or something, you'd be making like 20 grand off singing for a half hour. And I mean, I was like, whoa, it's like, are you kidding me? So it was really that. And then you'd be sitting in Little Mountain Sound, you'd be singing on a commercial, you'd be sitting in the reception area. And then Bob Rock started doing albums, and you have Rock. "Hey, Mark, I'm doing this band next week, Blue Murder. Can you come and do some backgrounds for me?" "Sure." And then the next day you'd be doing Blue Murder, sitting there, and somebody come in from the production company and say, "Hey, I'm doing a McDonald's ad tomorrow. Can you come in?" Yeah, I just go there. Literally, I'm not shit. Yeah, I'd go there and sit around and have a coffee and get work. It was amazing.
So great.
Wow.
It was an amazing time. It really, And that wasn't the only studio. There's Little Mountain Sound. There was Coco Productions. There was Westward. There's all these studios were happening at that time that were really active. So I basically, my timing to move to Vancouver couldn't have been better, so.
Absolutely.
So talk to the audience a little bit, because this is always something, and of course, growing up in that day and age where that whole mystique and whatever happened during the recording process wasn't as obvious as it is now with social media and obviously everybody Instagram and stuff. What was the band's take on that? They bring in another guy to sing, and of course, everybody's led to believe that this is the band's album. Is that something? I mean, you guys have all kind of partaken in that, I'm sure. Is that something you feel kind of an awkward? Do they bring you in secret and do this, and then hey, this is what's happening, or is everybody kind of aware of that process?
There was different instances. A lot of times I remember doing a 38 special song that Bryan Adams and
Jim Valance
wrote, for a movie it ended up being in a movie called Revenge of the Nerds. It was called Paradise, I think, or something like that. Paradise. It was a huge hit, and we were on tour, with Bachman Turner a couple of years ago with and only one guy showed up because to do that, the main lead singer. So I'm on the road with Bachman and Turner, and we're doing a show with these guys. So I walk up to the van and I go, "Hey guys, I think I worked on one of your songs," and it was like dead silence. Really? It was like
really,
like basically get out of here.
That guy's been telling his friends all his life.
It was really strange. So I guess the other guys in the band were not too pleased that I was part of that session. But anyway,
wow.
Maybe they didn't even know at all.
Maybe they didn't, but it was weird. It was like one of those things. It was one of those things where you went, "Oh, good. What have I done?"
Yeah. But a lot of the time in recordings, it's often the singer is the singer, and sometimes the other guys don't sing.
Yeah.
And so when they want to do harmonies, they don't necessarily want the singer doing his own harmonies all the time, because it starts to kind of get too samey. So a guy like Mark, like yourself, gets called in because they want somebody who's competent and quick, and you're not going to spend the whole day trying to come up with the one harmony. It's like you come in, boom, 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 you're out,
Well, and I'm sure that producer's under pressure from the record company to do it on a budget too, right? I mean, this predates everybody having the ability to record in their living room, and
tune everything too, and fix everything. Absolutely. Now it's you just get guys like Mark to come in and boom, it's like it's happening.
And that's part of the thing too, because you got to remember, especially at those bands, they were recording acts. So they were only going in the studio every couple of years. It's not like they were in there. They weren't going in there every day. Like we were in there every day singing on something. So you were going into the studio. You were never nervous. You were, so that was be part of, and plus you knew the producer, and you just, but working with Motley, and most of the acts were really, there was no ever, there was always some really.
Okay, so Nikki Six posted this.
Wow,
and it's David Steele, it's Mark, Bryan Adams, Jack Blade, Steven Tyler, and Vince Neil all around the mic. So there you go.
That's cool.
What the hell were you singing?
List.
I think we were singing.
We Are the World.
I can't remember.
We Are the World.
We Are the World. Yeah.
I don't know. I think we might have been singing "Sticky Sweet." I don't know. It's hard to remember a lot of the. It's like trying to remember. Sometimes people go, "What song did you sing on this album?" And I go, "I actually have to go. I have to go back and look, because I've got everything registered properly, obviously. So." I can get my royalties. Right?
Nice.
But sometimes it's like, hey, did you sing on that? And I'll sometimes get my royalty statement for the neighboring rights stuff. And I see all these titles. I didn't know what it is.
That's hilarious. That's a good problem to have.
I'm not bitching though. I'm not complaining. I'm
not
really,
at all.
Really pleased. And you try to, when that was happening, when all of that was happening, I still do a fair amount of that kind of stuff, but back then it was, you had to go into a studio to do it. Right. And now you kind of look at it in this mystical way. It was like but when it was happening, you didn't think anything of it. I didn't even know half of the bands when I was, when I go in the studio, somebody said, "Oh, you're singing on Motley Crue." I go, "Who are they?" So I didn't know. I eventually did, but that was part of the thing. It depends where you come from, and you're sort of, some of these bands were just starting out too, like Glass Tiger. It was, that was like a brand new band. And that, those sessions were in Jim Vallant's studio when he was still living in West Vancouver.
Right.
And there was just Alan Frew, myself, and Paul Jant sang Bee Gees on that. Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone.
Oh wow.
Wow.
There you go. There's another one I didn't realize was you. That's crazy.
Cool.
The other thing to keep in mind is often when they're doing vocals, say Motley Crue, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're like, you know, if Vince is there doing vocals and they're getting ready to, well, let's put some harmonies on this. Sometimes the other guys in the band aren't around, or 38 Special or whatever the band is.
Absolutely.
So it's like, do we fly the guys back in from wherever the hell they are to come sing these harmonies, or do we just get local guy Marc LaFrance to come out and just fucking rattle it off? And that's how that happens. So, because I've done a bunch of that as well.
Absolutely,
and it's really nice, like you say, when you get called in and you can do it and walk out the door with a check in hand and go, boom, you go out the door. Because as long as your voice isn't super prominent, I suppose they can kind of tuck you back there. And, you know, and although your voice is very prominent, I can recognize your voice in those Motley Crue songs, because I go, that's definitely not Vince's voice. What's going on back there? That's Marc LaFrance.
But you do still, I mean, it is part of, I mean, I've always said a lot of the times singing when you get called in, you're not trying to, you know, the worst mistake that a lot of singers do that when they go in to do Bee Gees is they try to stick out, you know, because oh man, I got to get, you know, and I've always tried to, I was really lucky.
Blend in.
I was really lucky working with with Bill Wallace in my early years. He was like brilliant with harmonies and stuff.
Right.
So I learned a lot from him as to how you should approach background singing and that type of thing. Because you don't want to be, it's not like you want your voice sticking out, because that's the key is to try to be a bit of a chameleon so that you blend in with whatever singer to make it work. Because, you know, otherwise you'd be, you know, you look at Michael McDonald, who was an amazing background singer, but man, you could hear him on everything he did. Right?
Yeah.
Beautiful voice.
Yeah,
you always
totally.
You'd hear
such a long way to go.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you talk about being comfortable in front of the producer, because that was always a thing for me back when I worked with producers, because we don't anymore. But just getting comfortable and being able to like settle yourself and just play naturally, that was always a challenge for me, because it was like I just met the guy, I might be in the studio and oh wow, I gotta like, you know, be perfect for him, and it messed with my head. But if you, after, you know, you establish a rapport after a few days or a week or whatever it takes, you're totally playing differently than that first time you were in the studio. So that's it, especially with a voice. I mean, drums is one thing, you're just bashing, but you know, being really calm and having a nice, you know, even tone singing, that had to be, I mean, that was great that you were in that position to be there every day.
Well, I think that the big thing with singing too is, you know, we all know as singers, you have to be relaxed. As soon as you start to get, I've seen great, phenomenal singers on stage, live guys that get really good at singing live, that blow you away. They come in the studio and they get nervous and tense up, and that's the absolute word. That's a nightmare for a singer, because your chords tighten up and it starts to sound strained, right? And the key is to be, but I mean, working with great producers, which I've had the good fortune, great producers know how to basically like psychologists, you know, they know how to get performances out of people, so they know how to make you feel relaxed. The great ones, I mean, the great ones, I've been fortunate, you know, Bob Rock is a great example. Fairburn was another one. Even the times that I worked on a couple of things with David Foster, he was like very, you know, they had a way of relaxing you, you know.
Well,
Those
there's
are
also
all major producers you worked with, by the way. Those are all A-list producers.
Yeah, they were. I mean, that's why they were so good, because they
Absolutely,
knew, they know what to do. You know, they know how to, you know, the best producers don't try to put too much of their mark on stuff. That's not saying mark. That's kind of a weird player word for me. But anyway, you know, they
trademark.
just the trademark. Yeah, they know how to just, you know.
Plus, they're Canadian. They're polite.
Yes, yeah.
David Foster always seems so intense now, though. So I wonder if he's the same way. It almost feels like if you went to a David Foster session now and you didn't get on the first try, he would just shame you and you'd walk out with your tail between your legs.
It's fun. I mean, I worked with him on quite a couple of different occasions, and he was very easy to work with. But I know what you mean when you see him in interviews, because he's got there's, he's really got that, what he's trying to see. He's a seller. I mean, the guy's an amazing salesman. He really is. And I remember when I did a show with him, we did an Expo 86 live thing that we did for BC TV, whatever. And one of the singers, Donnie Gerard, who is the singer who sang Wildflower with Skylark, was having voice problems. Well, I was there doing some schmaltzy stuff for this show as well, which with other people singing, it's our time to shine, da, 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 one of those kind of things. Anyway, and he came up to me, he says, Mark, look, we have a bit of a problem here. We're doing the show tomorrow. Can you learn all these songs for the show and come and do it? And I went, okay. So I did, and I ended up doing the show with him. So I covered up, I had to come in and fill in for somebody because his voice was hurting, and he was great to work with. But I know what you mean. You get on, and then we finish the show, and then it's like, hey, David, see you later. And he snapped his fingers and said, yeah, catch you on the charts. That he's kind of, and I've kind of gone, catch me on the charts. Well, okay. I didn't know what to say.
Amazing.
There's a great underlying message here, though, is because we're talking about you as a vocalist, but you're a drummer.
I know.
And
that's and a drummer who sings, which I think is really interesting, by the way. You're talking to two drummers right now that, they know how difficult it is just playing the drums. So being able to sing well is a whole other thing. Go ahead, Brent. I'm sorry.
I think having the communication tool of being a good singer or just to support and that's all learned. That's a Winnipeg thing, and it's a Canadian thing, and it's all around the world. But we definitely had to sing. I remember back in Winnipeg, everybody I knew sang. You played an instrument, but you also sang, and it was just part of supporting being in a band. And that it's clearly been a beneficial thing for you, right, Mark, to have.
Absolutely. It was when when I first started playing, I pretty much started singing at the same time. And of course, I was playing with guys that were in my very first band. The guy that actually taught me how to play drums, Jake Tapashanner, they just brought me in. He taught me how to play drums because they were trying to. He was a drummer, but they couldn't find a guitar player. So he learned how to play guitar. And of course, him and the other guy, they were 5 years old, and said, "Listen, Mark, okay, don't get any ideas here, okay? We're just, we need you right now. When we find a guitar player, you're probably not going to be with us, right?" But so I play, but that never happened. We kept playing, and the band evolved. But the fact that I could sing high, full voice, the guy was always amazed. And so, of course, from that point on, I was singing all the high harmonies on everything. Right? So,
amazing.
So that was, so it was pretty funny. But and it's funny, I ended up teaming up with this guy to buy my first. The guy that bought me my first kit, God bless his soul because he passed away, Glenn Lusiger, was an older guy as well we had a band house in St. Vital on St. Anne's Road, and it was called the Band House, and it was like this would have been like in the mid 60s. So
wow.
we'd go, as kids, we'd all go hang out around the band house right there. As guys, because Winnipeg was amazing back then. Every street had a band, and guys played instruments everywhere. We had these community centers that were full of, every weekend there was a band playing, and we as kids would go see like Vance Masters, who was, the Fifth and the Mongrels and all these amazing bands that were back, and the Guess Who, these bands that were playing at community centers and stuff. So anyway, this guy ended up having this rehearsal at his house. So we go see the band. He'd let me start playing on the drums, and he thought, "Hey, you got some potential." So he went down to a music store. I come from a family of 7 kids in a 2-bedroom house. No money to buy drums for me. Well, we went to Winnipeg Piano, and he bought a guitar, a little Gibson for this other guy, and drums for me. And he said, "Listen, if you guys learn how to play these, they're yours." And it's great. I mean, I ended up, my first drums were bought to me by a guy who thought I had potential,
That's amazing.
And I didn't have to do anything to him to get it, so.
Fortunate.
But, you think of those little things as a musician. I'm sure you guys all have those kind of stories as well, of how you started playing because somebody believed in you, and everything just sort of kind of grows out of that. But
So did you have any background in any other kind of instrument? I mean, I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but I mean, is there, because the drums being a sort of percussive instrument, being able to sing being such a musical thing, like Brent plays piano, Shane plays a bunch of stuff too. Did you play? Did you?
We always had like a piano at home, so I could plump black block chords. And I do play a little bit. I would never play guitar in front of people because I'm horrible. But I do play. I have a guitar. I play. I write on guitar. I play. But I would never. You won't catch me trying to do a session.
Right. I mean, but we could sit around the camp. Well, we could sit around the campfire and just kind of knock out.
Yeah, I can bang out chords and stuff, but and I will when I'm recording because I can punch in, right?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Could play one note at a time, right?
Yeah, totally.
I don't know if it's part of our culture, but it seems that when we were kids, you go to your friend's house, like it was around the holidays, there was always someone playing, there was always someone singing. Uncle Lou was on the, playing the accordion, and you just end up being part of it, singing, or you grab whatever it was. There was a guitar around. Just it seems like all of us kind of had that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Nobody wants to do it anymore because everybody's got an iPhone in your face. That's why.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
but we had growing up. I didn't even have a TV till I was around 7 or 8. Actually, I knew that I had it by the time I was 9 because I got to see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, which was that was like a religious experience for guys my age because
amazing.
And for me, it's like I saw these guys and I went, "Wow, are they ever cool?" And all the chicks were freaking out. I went, "What a great way to get chicks!" But eventually, I did learn to enjoy music as well. But I mean,
the other side of music too.
It's funny you guys were mentioning it. We've got to rewind a couple of minutes because I just wanted to mention something too, Brent, when you said everybody grew up and everybody also learned to sing. And I think that is important because that also predates a lot of the technology that we have now where you can get a pedal that does a 4-part harmony for you, right? So it was important that everybody kind of participated in that. So, I mean, anybody listening right now too, I mean, kids out there, learn to sing because you'll end up having Mark on your record.
Exactly.
That's one of the things it's definitely one of the things I tell all young people. They're like, how do I get the good gig? I'm like, well, you got to be good on your instrument, but you have to sing too. Because there's so many 100%. Great players that can do the job, but they can't sing. The guy that can play that isn't as good, but can sing will probably get the gig.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, that's another one of my dear friends who I played in a band, Musical Odyssey, Craig Troop. I remember driving in a van one day with him and he looked over, he says, You're gonna be able to play forever. I says, what do you mean? He says, well, you can sing and play drums at the same time. And I went, I never really thought anything of it, but now here I am, like 105 years old, and like,
but it is an interesting thing. So it must have been supernatural for you because I think a lot of people, like I'm always surprised by a guitar player who just won't even sing like the hey, or the kind of like the very obvious parts. And I'm like, well, that's weird. But as a drummer, there's so much going on. You're the heart and soul of the band. You're controlling the actual pulse that's happening. And then you're singing on top of that. So you clearly have this sort of built-in ability to do so.
Well, I think like I said, I started doing it like immediately. And I did spend hours in, like a lot of us, I think after grade 11, I quit school for a year. I did go back and get my 12, but I quit school for a year because I heard 200 Motels with Ainsley Dunbar. And I went, so I just basically went in a rehearsal studio by myself. The band would come in the evening and I'd spend like hours and hours at this Boy Scout hall on St. Mary's Road. And just by myself, I'd set up we had an old Garnet PA or Shure PA. Shure, it was the Shure Vocal Master PA, and I'd face him into me, and I'd pump because we had a record player. I don't even think there were cassettes back then. I think it was we had to play albums. So I was playing the albums and just sitting there banging away and singing along to them, with playing the records.
That's so cool. So tell us about playing behind guys like Randy Bachman and Fred Turner. That's got to be such a trip.
It is. I mean, Fred, I remember the first rehearsal we did in Winnipeg when we first started. We were going to do that tour, and meeting Fred, because he was like a Viking to me. Whenever I saw him,
totally.
He looked like a Viking, a Norseman, right? Real
Sings like one too. Yeah.
And then you meet the guy, and he is the absolute sweetest person. Like, he's so unlike what you think of a rock star, the way they would talk, the attitude. Just an absolute wonderful guy. And then the first time I remember when we did Not Fragile or something, and I hear this voice and I go, good Lord. It's just, and every night, I mean, we'd be doing sound check sometimes, and I'd say, hey, Fred, we're not doing the show now. Maybe just ease off a little bit. So, and he'd look over,
save your voice.
He'd look over, Mark, there's only one way that I know how to do it. And that's the way I do it, and he just goes for it every time.
Amazing.
But amazing guy. And every night that voice would just, he's a wonderful guy. And Randy I guess I've been working with him for about 11 years now.
Oh, wow.
He's wonderful. I mean, he's the guy is like a kid in a candy store. So he's still like that, like a young musician who's still writing, still, still has the fire in his belly.
He never seemed to have lost that. He still talks about just wanting to write songs all the time. And
that's great. I remember somebody asked him a question one time, and they said, if you hadn't have been a successful, guitar player, what would you have done? He says, without even batting an eye, I would have been an unsuccessful guitar player. That's what he loves to do. The guy still plays, he practices every day, plays. He's really he's a pleasure to be around for sure. And his stories are, on the
I bet.
He's one of those guys that you can just, you just listen to him for hours, and it's very entertaining for sure.
You know what's good to go to, everyone that's watching? On Amazon Prime.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
You can find it anywhere. There's a great concert, Mark, that you with Randy and the guys performed in Winnipeg, probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and you were at the Playhouse.
Oh yeah.
Pantages. And it's one of those where you're in Winnipeg, Randy's in his hometown, and the storytelling. Of course, I know there's probably a lot of that during the show, but when you're touring as well. But this was particularly so. And I've seen you guys a million times, and I know all the Guess Who history and Bachman Turner and all that. But man, I was just riveted by all these extras that were included in the backstory on all the great songs.
It's very.
And then he would tell the story, and you guys would go right into the classic song as well. It was really well done.
Yeah, it's funny. Cool. It's great working with Randy, because it's like you got to stay on your toes, because like every song has, we got 10 different arrangements depending on what show. If we're doing a symphony show, we're doing the vinyl tap show, or we're doing the rock show. It's like, so you got to make sure you got to always be watching him, because you never know. Just he might revert to one of those versions.
Right.
So you're forever like on your toes, making sure. But I mean, it's fun. That's what makes it. And my other bandmates, Mick Delavie and Brent Knudsen, who I've been working with Mick for like 35 years now.
All great singers.
And so we're the band, and we've been playing with Randy. So it's kind of like you guys with working with Slash, and then you go and you do your gig with the Toots and stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And
that's a funny thing too, because a lot of people think, I'm sure you guys get this because you're working with big name people all the time. People think as soon as you work with Randy Bachman, oh man, you've hit the big time. And they don't realize that as soon as you're finished doing that tour, you're back you got to jump on something else. Otherwise you can't pay your mortgage.
Of course.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not a guarantee that it's wonderful, and it's great to do, but when when you're a journeyman musician, which is kind of what I think of myself, you just
me too. Yeah.
That's
so touching on that. How was 2020 for you? I mean, I'm sure like everybody, it became one of those years that the live thing. Was there any session work, things that you were able to do remotely?
What happened is, like, for years I've been spent so much time in all the studios doing sessions. Finally, I decided I would get a really good microphone and start I started writing, and I started doing sessions from home, and it's been
Yeah.
for me this year. I don't know, maybe it's similar for you guys, but for me, this has been the most creative I've been in years.
Yeah.
I've got my third single's coming out on April 9th, and I'm not worried
Great.
about genres. I'm doing whatever I feel I want to do. If it's going to be a country tune, or it's going to be a Latin tune, or a rock tune, I don't care. Whatever I decide I
By all
want to
means.
do, I do. I'm not really worried about if the people like it, if people download it, it gets used for something great. But I'm just doing it because I just love doing it, which is why I started playing music in the first place. So
That's
for
so
me,
cool.
this whole period has been really, really fantastic, and I get to spend time with my beautiful wife. And so I don't know, I feel pretty fortunate. Despite, I feel bad that I've been told that I got to be careful when I talk like this, because some people have died.
I know.
And I don't want to be belittle what's happened, but for me, it has been a very positive, creative time. So
yeah, no, and I mean, like we've always said on this show, when we talk about that, we're really just talking about the effects that it has on in particular the band guys, the musicians, the actors, and the live performance, the live industry in general.
I feel bad for the obviously because you got the crews, there's a lot of people that are hurting financially from this. I mean, we're a little, in Canada, we've been pretty lucky because because of our government, there's a lot of assistance for if you're if you file a tax return where you've made over $5,000 gross, or net or whatever, you can apply to the government to get subsidy for income. So there's a lot of things up here that we've benefited from. Where we're not hurting, at least financially, and people aren't going bankrupt. But there still are some, of course. But
of course, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
no, it's been an awful, but hopefully, like we were saying, it's looking to make a quick turn. And as you said, some of you guys have already taken the vaccine. So
I think as soon as this opens up, we're going to see it's going to be like the Roaring '20s. I think it's going to go absolutely apeshit. People are going to want to see live music. We're going to be working more than ever. So we got to stay in shape and get ready to do it.
I know.
But I'm feeling proud. I mean, every day, you just sort of see that. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I think, with the vaccines and all that. So I prefer to think in a positive way than drag myself down into the dredges. So, but I think
totally.
I think it's going to open up.
Well, hopefully it does. Well, we have kept you for almost a good hour, and we know some of these guys have other things we got to get on to do, but we wanted to thank you for coming on today. You mentioned you have a single coming out. Is that part of an album release next month?
I guess it'll eventually become an album.
That's exciting.
Yeah, no.
So to everybody on here that wants to go check it out, where would they find it?
Just go to marclafrance.com, and you can get to all the portals. The Spotify, my Delinquent Records site. I got my whole entire catalog. Stuff that I've done through the years has been reissued, so you can stream it. Stuff that with an album I did with Paul Dean in 1994.
I have that.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yep.
That was fun. He is great. There's another guy that's was fantastic to work with. He opened doors for me too. That man.
Yeah. And did you play with Trooper? And did you what were all the other bands from Vancouver that you drummed with?
I played with Trooper. I played with Straight Lines, Sherry Ulrich, Bruce Miller. I have a lot of different bands, and of course Cease and Desist. But I've had the good luck to always be working. So
that's great.
Cease and Desist is still going, right? You guys are still
We've got a lot of our gigs. We do a lot of corporate kind of stuff, like the Toques, the kind of thing. We're doing a big gig in Winnipeg in. Well, I guess it's been moved for a high school reunion at the Trade Convention Center in 2022. So it's
wow. So how many years has Cease and Desist been going?
Well, Mick and I have been working together for over 35 years. We were
amazing.
When I joined up with him, it was with Jeff Neal. Actually, was Mike Ferloni, their sound guy at the time, phoned me up. Hey, could you come and do a one gig at the Body Shop? And I went, sure. So Mick and I've been working together ever since. Jeff, of course, left and went to play with Jimmy Barnes, and then Brent joined us maybe 3 years later. So he's been almost 32 years with us.
Holy cow, that's crazy! Wow.
Yeah, so it's a little train that just keeps chugging. So when
by all means,
whatever, it's just you know, I love playing anyway. I mean,
of course, yeah.
I'll play it anywhere.
Yeah.
We're all the
That's
same.
great, though.
All of us
We're all
fairly,
the
you
same.
know.
Well, it's inspiring. I'm glad we got a chance to catch up and hang out because
it's great chatting with you guys, and
absolutely
we'll see each other in person on the road or somewhere.
Absolutely.
Let me know next time you guys are in Vancouver. If you're doing any kind of show, just let me know.
Well, we'll
let you know when
I'll be there.
So, yeah.
Whenever we need some background vocals, we'll call you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, now you're talking.
The Wizard of Oz behind the curtain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I got a funny story about that, but we won't go into an Ozzy Osbourne story, but we can talk.
No, let's hear it. I need to hear this.
Oh yeah,
we need to
hear that.
Years ago, I get a call because I guess Jim Vallance and Fairburn had suggested to Sharon or whatever that I'd be good to do background vocals for Ozzy on a curtain by the side of the stage. I guess because they had a guy actually covering for him when he'd blow his voice out or whatever.
Wow.
So I went to I can't remember, somewhere in the States, San Diego or something like that. And they flew me there and I went to do the show. I was getting ready to go meet Ozzy and the whole thing. And the next thing I know, they said, don't, I went, did a quick, met a couple of the guys in the band. I was back in the hotel. And then he decided, I guess he couldn't do the show, and they blamed it on the fact his wife had been, the road manager phones me up. Oh, the concert's been canceled. I said, what? He says, yeah, the concert's been canceled because Ozzy lost his voice, but we're saying that his wife got in a car accident. I went, oh, okay. So anyway, I turned the TV on and fans are flipping cars over, burning them. It was like a major riot, and just crazy. So I flew home, and then I think I outpriced myself for doing it because I went, wow. It felt pretty weird too, because I don't know, some of the guys in the band at that time, this was years ago, it seemed like they were on some weird shit. So I don't know. Wow. I just went, I'm staying home. I'm gonna do that. But
wow,
probably for the best. Yeah.
But it was a funny story about.
Yeah,
that was like Jakey Lee era, Zakk Wylde. When
I can't remember what era. I'd have to look back and see it. But it was.
That's probably when Robert Mason was doing that, like for a whole tour. He was.
Yeah, they had a little black that lit like a.
Yeah.
It was a little black scrim by the side of the stage, and that's where you'd stand, and you'd, it was weird. But
now they just, now it's pre-recorded stuff.
Yeah, now
they don't need.
Which it's funny because even the pre-recorded stuff, a lot of people look down on that. I mean, unless you're doing a whole lip sync, I don't think that's very cool. But I mean, we all know when we're in stacking vocals, how can you make a stack sound? When you got three guys singing, how can you get that sound? It's like an effect on a keyboard, right? So
yeah.
I don't really look at that as being a bad thing.
Yeah,
plus
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, so
it is what it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Trunk.
Here's Eddie Trunk.
Did you hear him go off on the Grammys?
Yes,
never ending.
Oh yeah,
that's great.
Anybody
we always
watch
like
it?
to end on a good story. No, we were just talking about that a little bit. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me. That's been a blast.
Thanks so much,
Mark.
Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, take care.
To rock
We will talk to everybody next Tuesday.
Oh, is it? All right.
All right, guys.
Peace, guys.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Later,
guys.
skaters.